Oh, man, what another crazy effing race. I am so surprised that there's more casualties in the 250 class than the 450 class. And the 450, the top three are separated by 2 points. Crazy. I have my trusty Costco cookies here. And yeah, I know this show is a little bit later than before, but you know, family comes first. You got to have a work-life balance. And there's that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too unless you have 2 freaking cakes. So there's a pro tip for everybody. Make 2 freaking cakes, and therefore, yeah, you could get your way. But without any other digression, wow. What do I say first? Do I talk about the track, the 250 class, the 450 class? Well, let's talk about Deegan getting lapped and him showing some frustration by flipping off, which could have been Tom Vial or it could have been Haymaker. Could have been another pro circuit guy, potentially. I think that's what it was. And that whole deal that went down was Haymaker. He was getting pinched on the inside, and Tom Vial barely touched him, and he should have just grabbed his brakes and not forced the issue, because those hard 90s, man, you could totally see this domino effect happening, and there's quite often a lot of guys going off the track. That was bad. That was really, really bad. I mean, the 250s, they've got lots of hurt guys right now. I think Reynolds has got a broken collarbone. Not so sure about Mosman. He was supposed to be on Star. You got Styles. You've got, Enzo Lopes. Like, there's so many guys. And Jeremy Martin, we know nothing about Jeremy Martin at the moment. I really hope that there wasn't anything bad, but the way he crashed and those whoops were really, really gnarly, where they were getting so cupped out that it took his handlebars and just moved it completely one direction, and therefore it just kicked him right off. The bikes, when you turn a motorcycle by leaning. You don't actually really turn the handlebars. So when those handlebars knife on you and you're going in a straight line, well, boom, there you go. He gets basically endoed or high side from the side and hits his back. He goes from 40 miles an hour, 5th gear, pinned through the whoops, 4th gear, semantics, lands right on his back, and then his back of his head hits. And that was the thing that really scared me for that guy. And man, he's older. He's in his 30s now, so he's not going to recover as fast. And so, oh man, the 250 guys, that's what the 450s were last year. And there is a thing here with the just Supercross being incredibly dangerous. How do you make it safer? We're not going to talk too much about that. More so, it's interesting to see Deegan actually say that, hey, he took 4 weeks off. There's all these rumors. I got a bunch of text messages, bunch of stuff saying that, hey, there's some bone broken in his wrist. But when he says that it was a sprain and then you take 4 weeks off, granted, sprains are bad. I've ridden with some broken wrists before. They're not fun. Sprains sometimes hurt worse than actual breaks. But to me, a high-level athlete that has resources of top-level PTs and doctors, 4 weeks off to me sounds like a broken something in the wrist. And this was not what he had in mind for redemption. Thank God, this is where it's going to sound sort of nihilistic, right? Thank goodness there was other riders that got lapped, because if he would have finished 22nd and made 0 points, that would have been a hard pill to swallow, because the only reason why he's lined up is to race. Yes, the kid is fast. He's full of vinegar. He's ready to freaking go. Give him some lighter fluid, because it's going to just explode. He's fun to watch. His corner speed is amazing. I do believe, though, that he has a messed up wrist that is healing. He's 4 weeks. Typically, when you break something like that, regardless, maybe if you need surgery or not, 6 weeks is usually when you start feeling really, really strong. And where's that 6 week? He's past the 6 to 8 weeks on here. So it's coming. By the end of February, I could see him back up and winning. And if I have to say anything about Forkner, is Holy crap. After 8 years, Luck finally, he needs to go buy a lottery ticket because he's had such shitty luck for the past 8 years. Finally, in a first turn pileup that took out everybody, it didn't take out him. He actually got to show some of his potential as a rider that should have won multiple championships by now and should be in the 450 class. Like, he was racing with guys much younger than him, Jett, and beating him for a little bit before it all went down. And now you're seeing guys like Sexton move up to the 450s, win championships. You have Ferrandis move up to the 450s, win championships. You have Jett move up to the 450s, win championship. Man, it would be super hard to be inside that guy's head, seeing everybody else have success that you have potentially beaten before. Oh, so it's good to see him finally getting what is due to him, and got to give it up to the whole pro circuit guys for keeping him on board, and potentially his agent should get a raise too for making sure that he still has a freaking ride. The Triumph guys, those bikes showed that they were fast. They got some hole shots in the 450 class. Jalik Swole, man, he ponied up. He was in a good transfer spot, got kicked off the track by Brown, and actually came back to get a transfer. I thought that was incredible. And same thing with his performance in the main event. Ferry, I hope he's okay because he got freaking tattooed to a wall after a fifth gear corner or straightaway. That was bad. That's not the first introduction to Supercross you want to have. That to me was bad. Even as much as that new bike and being on a factory team is cool and all, that has to sting because usually, you know what happens is when you touch a hot stove, you're like, oh, I'm not going to touch that stove again. But what does he have to do in 2 weeks? He's got to touch the hot stove again. So I'm wishing him the best of luck to be able to make sure that he can just move past everything. And I will get onto the 450s about moving past some things. But here, before I get going about them, I want to talk a little bit about the track and some of the stuff, give you guys a little tidbit of what we're going to talk about this week in the breakdowns of mistakes, passes, lines, etc. This track, because of the dirt, incredible G-outs. Freaking credible G-outs where these riders are jumping off the gas, landing on gas. They're creating these U-shaped stuff where the suspension is going to compress and then it's going to bounce and it's going to kick guys. And some guys struggled really hard with all these G-outs. The track had multiple areas that were kicking you. And I really didn't like what the Dirtworks guys, if I'm being honest, I did not like what they did with the tabletops. In my track video, I showed you guys what the lines were potentially going to be, which they were mostly accurate. In every tabletop, they put a lip on top of it to where the guys could rut and then jump off. And one of the back sections where they had the triple on off to just a step on, step off, that section, I really wish they just took out the lips on there. It would have created a little bit more different lines for riders to be able to pass because it was hard to pass. You were sort of waiting for somebody to make a mistake. I will say, however, though, I did like what they did in the sand section after the whoops. Is usually there's just two lines, and the inside line usually becomes the faster line, period, because it's the shortest distance from point A to point B. Why go wide when you could just go to the inside? Exactly, right? It's simple math. You don't have to be a genius. You can be a silly dirt bike rider like myself that has multiple concussions, and you can still figure it out. But what did Dirtworks do? They added little rollers to the inside and not the outside, so guys were bouncing up and down, and it was even. It was fairly even. You had passes happen going on the outside and passes coming in on the inside. I really, really enjoyed that part of the track. There was a lot of one-line places, I think, just because of those simple G-outs. And here, quick, small break. got to thank today's video sponsor, Precision Transport. Make sure you call 877-827-0618. These guys are a freight company. They are a broker. They do dry loads and they do refrigerated loads. If you're looking to move anything, these guys support moto. Make sure you give them a call. Here, let me move on to the 450s, which, what should we say first about Tomac? Pay attention, especially this week. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and you have the notification icon on, because I caught a couple things, couple of mannerisms that made me feel that Achilles leg on the left-hand side is bugging him. And why would somebody like Tomac? We know he's tough as nails. He's not going to tell you otherwise. He's going to be one of those guys that you hope to God you never have to play poker with, because it's going to be the same face every single hand. He's not going to show you any emotions. But his body language on the bike, it definitely showed you that something is going up. And I think it was because of these ruts and how deep everything was there at Detroit. And maybe it started early on, because in the heat race, Webb went down, and I believe Tomac got around him, but then Webb came through and passed him. In the main event, came through, passed him. It's interesting that on Star Yamaha, that Tomac is not the better of the two riders right now. I don't mean that in like he's not the more talented guy. He's not the most experienced guy. No, he is just dealing with something, and it's hard to come back from an injury like that. So him and Deegan, the guys that are the favorites right now, they've got some adversity that they got to stick through to try to prevail. And if this season shows you nothing else, it shows you that anything can happen. Even last year with him losing the championship within one race. So I really think that he is struggling with that Achilles leg, whether it's the Achilles tendon or something. It's bothering him, and I believe it is a injury. So, Jett, did he freaking respond to all the booing and everything on? I love, as a young man who's 20 years old, come on the podium, and what does he say? He says, hey, I love you, fans, and I appreciate all the motivation. That to me is perfect, because if you guys have known anything about this channel, we talk a little bit about stoicism and just how to be a decent effing human being and how do you vanquish your enemies online. You say freaking nice things about them. And usually there's a fine line between love and hate, and people that give you hate, it's not so much that they hate you, it's just that they're expressing their emotions in a way that's hard to, because I've told you about body language and tone and words, that really communication on the keyboards don't mean anything. It's not what people really mean to say, express. Everybody loves Jett. They don't really want to see him fail. It's good to see him back, and I loved how he raced Jason Anderson that first heat race. Wow, they went back and forth. It reminded me of the Futures race from a week ago. They didn't really touch each other. They showed each other what's up, but it was respect. There wasn't this, hey, what you said to me about on Gypsy or whatever shit went down on whatever platform. I don't care. I'm just going to beat you straight up. And that's what he did. And what did he do in the main event? He put himself in a position to have the best level of success by getting the whole shot and then just running away with it. Pretty much perfect night for him, from fastest qualifier to winning the heat race to winning the main event. I think the whole field is wishing for another mud race just so that they could try to level the field a little bit. And if I'm gonna go 180, talk about Jason Anderson a bit, he was struggling. He was struggling with getting over the rhythms. These G-outs were real hard for him. Jason really likes to sit down a lot and seat bounce stuff, and it was slowing him down. It wasn't giving him the quiet lift that he needed to get over stuff, and that's why guys were going underneath him, is he was popping a little bit higher and just wasn't able to make things clear. And I really think that what slows him down a lot, too, is he was using a lot of tapping the rear brake over the jumps. He was doing it multiple times a lap. Tap the rear brake, pulling the clutch. It just slows your forward momentum down a little bit, where somebody like AP, even though AP didn't beat him, he finished one place behind him in 6th, where Jason Anderson finished 5th. AP, I love his riding style because it's just a little bit more woodsy. He moves. He doesn't hit that rear brake. He goes from standing up to just lean forward a little bit to let that motorcycle move and downside. And this track really emphasized that you needed to get up and get down in between this stuff smoothly, because if you barely case stuff, it was hard to set up for the next stuff because of the G-outs, because the suspension would unload and you have less power to the ground because the suspension is moving underneath you. And this was a difficult track for Jason Anderson for his riding technique, where you're just sort of flowing. Who else should I talk about? Webb, I mean, decent, right? He came from way back, and it's really his heat race that effed him up. Is he was out front winning it, and what happened there, I'm going to give away another little tidbit of I'm going to talk about this weekend, is foot dragged him. His foot dragged him down in the sand. It pushed or anything. It was simply, he was leaning the motorcycle over, and his inside foot on the foot peg hit it and just tipped him over, drug him down. That's all she wrote. He didn't have the best of luck, but he made it work because he ended up in a 4th place for the evening. And he came through the pack. He definitely would have been a podium guy and potentially could have won this race if he got to start ahead of Jett. Really, there's no beating Jett when he gets out in front because he's just so much faster. And we really got to see Jett come into his own again, do the things that we've seen him in motocross, where he's just so fluid and he's in his element. And really what you have to do to Jett early on is you have to pressure him, because if you can pressure him, he might make a mistake. And that's what's happened in the last couple races. Anyway, appreciate every single one of you guys. Happy Saturday evening, and make sure you, again, subscribe. I got really good stuff planned. I got 6 pages of notes that I've been writing. It's all going good. And man, I'm so hyped up because my sugar, is it glucose? Glue? Jesus, it's all the sugar that's coming up to me, but the best combination is water and cookies. So, till next time, you guys keep it WFO. Ba-ra-da-da-da-da-da.